Lone Ukrainian MiG-29 evades Russia's air defenses, destroys $2.5 billion bomber fleet. Before the night sky erupted over Engles-2, no one expected a single aging MiG-29 to slip past one of Russia's most fortified air defense networks. Yet in just 11 minutes, a lone Ukrainian pilot, flying at treetop level, dodging infrared missiles, jamming radars, and surviving a point-blank Tor M2 strike, delivered a blow that crippled nearly half of Russia's long-range strike capability. This was not a swarm raid, not a multi-aircraft formation, but one jet threading a flight path through mist-covered river valleys, electronic interference, and overlapping engagement zones designed to make such a mission impossible. What followed was a chain reaction of explosions, radar confusion, and air defense chaos that forced Russia to redeploy entire S-400 regiments away from the front line. Today's report breaks down how this single pilot reached Engles-2, how the bombs found their target despite heavy jamming, and how he fought to escape on one engine with his aircraft falling apart beneath him. Today at 3:18 AM, a blast rose into the night sky above Russia's Engles-2 airbase. Ukrainian military sources claimed that two 100 lb JDAM-ER glide bombs, released by a lone Ukrainian MiG-29, detonated inside a reinforced air hangar and destroyed 5 Tu-95 MS strategic bombers. The strike resulted in the loss of roughly $2.5 billion worth of aircraft and support systems, all while the base was under the protection of an S-400 Triumph regiment valued at around $1.2 billion. Analysts assessed that the loss represented a large share of Russia's ready Kh-101 cruise missile stock for winter operations. What unfolded before that explosion was an 11-minute penetration flight through one of Russia's most heavily defended air corridors. Moments before the approach, the MiG-29 lifted from a hardened shelter near the Sumy region. Its twin RD-33 MK engines pushed nearly 19,400 pounds of thrust each as the jet climbed briefly before the pilot, callsign Ghost, forced the aircraft down to ultra-low level flight. The radar altimeter steadied at 164 feet, a height chosen to remain below the detection horizon of the Voronezh DM early warning radar to the north. To avoid its sweeping search beam, the jet followed a low exposure corridor along border terrain, banking inside terrain folds that limited exposure. Inside the cockpit, radar emissions remained off and communications silent, relied on a Ukrainian-designed INS, with GPS as an opportunistic aid, a device engineered to maintain 33-foot accuracy after hundreds of miles, and intended as insurance against Russian jamming. The display on the pilot's head-up panel traced a chain of waypoints linked to the curves of the Volga River. Flying inside the river valley introduced consistent masking from terrain, mist, and water vapor, all of which reduced the effectiveness of infrared seekers. It also kept the aircraft's heat signature low as it approached Engles-2. Based on earlier reconnaissance, Ukrainian analysts assessed that 5 Tu-95 MS bombers were parked in a single 20-inch thick concrete shelter. Each bomber weighed roughly 188 tons and could carry up to 16 K-101 cruise missiles. Destroying them would significantly reduce Russia's long-range strike capability during a period of escalating winter operations. To reach the target, Ukrainian planners employed an integrated 3-layer support system. 12 miles off the MiG-29's course, a Shark reconnaissance UAV maintained position to deliver final target coordinates in encrypted form to the JDAM-ERs. Far behind the border, a Bukovel AD electronic warfare station projected interference, generating false radar tracks to confuse the S-400 Triumph's battle management radar. Meanwhile, the pilot followed the river path to exploit natural masking. This combination was intended to prevent early interception and force Russian defenses to react only during the final minutes. The first challenge emerged from a riverside checkpoint. A single Igla infrared-guided missile was launched toward the MiG-29. The pilot performed an immediate 9G brake turn, causing the missile to overshoot. Although the aircraft escaped unharmed, the launch plume rose like a signal flare. Nearby, Pantsir S-1 operators interpreted it as a possible engagement zone and activated their search radars. Ghost accelerated to around 400 knots, relying on the steep riverbanks to interrupt radar line of sight at multi-second intervals intervals. Inside a distant S-400 command post, operators observed a surge of false tracks, the result of Bukovel AD's frequency hopping interference. One of the operators launched a 48N6 DM interceptor at a suspected target. The missile detonated mid-air without striking anything, a result consistent with jamming-induced ghost signals. For a moment, the real MiG remained hidden. Further ahead, the threat multiplied. 3 Igla missiles launched almost simultaneously from elevated rooftops in an industrial zone beside the river. Because manpads lack onboard radar, the MiG's SPO-15 remained silent. The pilot relied on visual tracking as the missiles closed from 3 directions. He executed unpredictable 3G maneuvers every 2 seconds, a pattern designed to break the missile's ability to maintain lock. All 3 overshot, but their launch trails formed additional smoke markers, improving the chance of Russian detection. These signatures were soon picked up by a P-18 VHF radar, a Soviet-era system operating on long wavelengths, capable of bending over terrain obstacles. Although detection remained intermittent, the radar operator identified a repeating pattern and alerted a Tor M2 battery, positioned roughly 12 miles ahead. A Tor M2 requires several minutes to activate from standby, and estimates suggested Ghost was less than 2 minutes from entering its range. At the same time, a Krasukha 4 electronic warfare system began disrupting GPS signals in the region. On the MiG's navigation display, available satellites dropped from 8 to 4. JDAM-ERs are INS-guided with GPS aiding. Precision degrades under GPS denial, putting the strike at risk. To counter the jamming, the pilot executed a rapid vertical maneuver. He pulled 5 Gs and climbed from 164 feet to approximately 15,000 feet in just over 20 seconds, approaching the MiG-29 structural limits with a climb rate near 41,000 feet per minute. This climb exposed the aircraft fully to radar surveillance. Still, it was part of the mission design. The Shark UAV transmitted the final encrypted coordinates to the JDAM-ERs precisely at this moment, guaranteeing the bombs would have accurate guidance independent of GPS disruption. At peak altitude, with airspeed falling towards stall speed, Ghost released the 2 bombs. Their wings unfolded, shifting them into an 8-mile guided glide toward the target. Almost immediately, his radar receiver emitted a continuous tone. Indications suggested a Tor M2 battery had obtained a lock and launched a 9M331 interceptor. The pilot inverted the aircraft and performed a split S descent, releasing chaff bundles and flares to complicate radar and infrared tracking. The countermeasures obscured the MiG for several seconds, but the missile had already entered terminal homing. It detonated roughly 300 meters behind the aircraft, sending a burst of tungsten fragments forward. One engine absorbed significant damage, forcing Ghost to shut it down. Hydraulic systems degraded, reducing control effectiveness to about 1/3 of normal. He remained dozens of miles inside Russian territory, with an entire air defense network now on alert. While the pilot focused on survival, the 2 JDAM-ERs completed their descent. They penetrated the metal roof of the hangar and 2 reinforced floors before their delayed fuses activated. Analysts estimated overpressure sufficient to collapse the structure. Stored KH-101 missiles inside the hangar ignited in a chain reaction. Satellite imagery later showed a vertical plume rising an estimated 1,200 feet, visible for hours and detected from space. As Ghost descended to low level, Russian Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft guns opened fire from multiple positions. These twin-barreled systems, firing nearly 1,000 rounds per minute, created dense walls of 23mm tracer fire. With only one functioning engine and fading hydraulics, maneuvering through this barrage was limited. Multiple rounds struck the wings and fuselage, but the MiG maintained partial flight control. Ahead, friendly territory was still several dozen miles away, and fuel levels were critical. The pilot deviated from his planned exit route, adding several miles to the flight. Analysts later assessed that this detour improved survival chances by avoiding predictable interception points. Russian long-range radars were momentarily degraded by thermal interference from the Engels-2 explosion, giving the MiG a window of reduced tracking. A Ukrainian search and rescue element monitored the remaining engine's emissions and prepared for recovery. Ghost crossed into Ukrainian airspace at an extremely low altitude, and what followed was a hard landing that Ukrainian sources categorized as controlled, with the pilot surviving. At dawn, satellite images confirmed extensive damage at Engels-2. The destroyed Tu-95 MS bombers represented a major portion of Russia's strategic aviation assets stationed at the base. 2 hangars collapsed. Several K-101 missiles were lost. Affected S-400 components may have suffered thermal degradation from the blast. The Tor-M2 battery involved in the engagement was assessed as likely damaged by overpressure. Reports indicated S-400 units were redeployed from the Kharkiv sector to reinforce deep rear facilities, creating vulnerabilities along the front line. What remains is the tactical dilemma at the center of the operation. During the final approach, with a Tor-M2 interceptor closing and limited altitude remaining, the pilot faced a decisive choice: perform a high-G defensive break to force an overshoot, or execute a Doppler notch maneuver to hide inside ground clutter while conserving precious fuel. Which tactic offered the higher survival probability given the missile's terminal state and fuel limits?